Every person I've signed a deal with in the past year, like larger contracts, all of them I'm laughing with. Humor and levity in a situation actually just hits right into the body. It goes straight in. Like you can't even stop it. And it creates oxytocin in your body. And oxytocin is all about trust. That's literally like when you're having a baby and when you're having sex, oxytocin is there. It's being created. And I'm pretty trusting in those two states. When I'm having a baby, having sex, lots of trust. So why wouldn't you want to bring that feeling into building your company, selling big contracts, your team members, your friends? Like if laughter does that, how powerful to know that you can literally change the state of your body just by promoting laughter. Hey everyone, welcome back to Mission Daily. Today, Albert and I are going to talk about laughter and why it is literally the best medicine. I've used it in sales. I've closed big deals with it. I've developed huge amounts of trust in my community by having this. Humor is the ultimate tool, and Albert and I are going to get into it today on this episode. Albert, howdy.
What's up, Stephanie? How are you? Long time.
Good.
Long time.
Such a long time. I've been doing these solo episodes, and I've just missed your divisiveness.
I'm not divisive. I just don't think like you. That's all.
Yeah, well, today we are going to hopefully think alike or not, because we're going to talk about how to use humor in the workplace, building companies, with friends, because I personally believe that everyone can be funny if they just have a little help from their friends, which is me. Hi.
That's a bold statement. Please elaborate, because I am coming from a place where I do not think everyone can be funny. I think it's actually quite a skill. I've definitely been around people that I find unfunny, and I'm sure plenty of people find me unfunny. Although I only have friends that find me funny. You know what I mean? Like you kind of fall into your circle. It's almost like humor in comedy, or what you laugh at, is ultimately the most common denominator among all your friends. But that's what I think. But I can be easily convinced. Steph,
Ooh,
why is it that you think that you can develop, whether it's a sense of humor or I guess comedic delivery? I'm not sure what skill you can develop. Why do you think you could develop this?
So before even talking about why I think we can develop it, because I want you to get to the end of this episode and see if you change your mind of if you think this is something people can develop. But first, I want to go into like why I even think it's important. And this is something that, I've personally been experiencing now for, I would say, the past year. Like when I think about building Mission, our company, you and I doing this thing together, trying to grow it, I would say the first many years was very serious and just, you get on with these big enterprise clients and you just got to make sure you're the smartest one and you tell them everything they need to know. And it's very serious. Fast forward to today, I look at my life and everything around it is just funny. Like I'm joking around with all our clients. Sales calls are funny. Every person I've signed a deal with in the past year, like larger contracts, all of them I'm laughing with. And so that's why I'm like looking at our trajectory as a company and then my life and my community, just like everything to me has been inspired by humor, bringing laughter to things. And so that's why it's me really just recognizing that and seeing how much more fun it is. So that's why I wanted to get into it today, because as I started looking into the background of it, there's actually so much science behind laughter. And that's what I didn't realize. I just saw the impacts of it of, wow, look at where Mission's going. Look at how our team feels. Look at how fun this is. Look at how silly I can be. And people still are like, Steph's going to help do this thing with me. She's going to be a great partner. And we get on these weekly check-ins and we're laughing and cracking up about the most mundane things. So science part is where I want to dive into first, because when I started looking into some research, what I saw was first, when you're laughing promotes a chemical exchange in your body, and it is, one, decreasing stress. So it's decreasing the stress factors that are in your body. And I read a statement that said, okay, if you have something hard that you're going to be telling your team or your colleague or whoever it might be, you can't just talk logically to them. That's going to take a while. If you're telling someone, oh, my company's about to go out of business, and here's all the logical reasons and why, that takes a while to bring someone in to get them to calm down. But humor and levity in a situation actually just hits right into the body. It goes straight in. Like you can't even stop it. And it instantly is impacting your body. Same thing with, it creates oxytocin in your body. And oxytocin is all about trust. That's literally like when you're having a baby and when you're having sex, oxytocin is there. It's being created. And I'm pretty trusting in those two states. When I'm having a baby, having sex, lots of trust. So why wouldn't you want to bring that feeling into whether it be building your company, selling big contracts, your team members, your friends? Like if laughter does that, how powerful to know that you can literally change the state of your body just by promoting laughter. So there's so much cool science behind this. And that's when I was like, oh, we get to just do more of it, which is why I think before this recording, we were having poop jokes and laughing, and look where we are now. So close.
So I think all of the things you said are true, but observationally, I think it's in reverse. I think being your authentic self and showing your sense of humor actually just enables you to find other people who think like you, because every comedian kind of there's usually a butt of the joke, right? So like the or you know the I don't know what they call it, but the butt of the joke, right? And if a person doesn't agree with that, they're not going to bond with you. It's going to be quite challenging. So for the longest time, sales reps had to build rapport with prospects, and typically rapport, I mean, the reality rapport is like having a good time. Like have a good time. Usually that involves laughter. Usually involves a little bit of, a little sauce, a little drinky. And those top reps would always get the biggest deals. And it's because it is true. People like doing business with people they like. And that's a fact, right? So I think being funny or sharing your sense of humor, what it does is it attracts other people like that. And it makes it easy to do. It makes it easy to work with you. Whereas if you're always serious, then people don't really know how you really are. Conversely, if you also, let's say, are telling like body function jokes or whatever kind of jokes you want to tell, what also can happen is someone might be put off by that. And that would help you say, well, that's probably not a good service relationship. And I think also, and this is kind of getting nerdy and not funny at all, considering we're talking about comedy, but it's also much more applicable in a service than a transaction, a transactional relationship, because a service relationship typically means we have to interact a lot. Whereas in a transactional relationship, for example, if I was selling, let's say, for example, I worked for like John Deere and I had all the top tractors and farm equipment, and I have the distribution rights in a country. Well, I mean, you're still probably going to do business with me, even if you don't find me funny, because I got the tractors, bro. Like at the end of the day, I got what you need. You don't have much choice. But service, there's a lot of choice and there's a lot of interaction. So it's by far way easier to work with somebody you actually like, thinks funny, makes you laugh. 100%. That makes the life easier.
But I mean, I've seen some really good companies that have products that I've developed a lot of brand love for them. I don't even own the thing yet, but because of their marketing, one is this bidet company, which I'm like, I want a bidet.
Tushy, I have one.
Tushy, have you seen their marketing? Like the amount of jokes on their website.
By the way,
don't
hilarious. Go to tushy.com. That's a porn site. But yeah.
Oh, Albert's been there many times. So now he is trying to steer clear for everyone else. It's like, fool me 5 times. Dang, I'm here again. Uh-oh. But their marketing for Tushy, the bidet company, it's so good. And like, it's so funny. It actually makes me laugh. Like some companies try it and you're like, that's not that funny. But I do think every company could have a chance at delighting their customer in this way. You could sell a normal basic bidet and you could probably be great at it. Or you can sell this in a funny way. And like everything, even to their installation is funny. Like how to install it and what to expect. All of it is comedy. And so I'm like, I don't even own that yet. But I know that when I go and buy one, it'll be from there just because their branding is so funny. So I think products or services.
But I still think that's still attracting like minds. It's not really, because other companies can try to be funny and it falls on deaf ears, or you don't find it interesting or humorous or whatever the case may be. You won't align to it. And so it is I think it's bold. And I like it because comedy is opinionated. And that's my favorite part about it. Mm-hmm. And so if you are like, for example, let's use Liquid Death, which has been largely praised in the marketing world for being very good at what they do. They, of course, make canned water, which is not a big deal. But they make canned water, but they kind of have like this metal, dangerous kind of edge to it, right? And I'm sure a lot of people find it to be over the top or maybe offensive, because there is like one about water being the most dangerous thing on earth, how many people it kills, how many people it drowns. In that commercial, they are waterboarding a woman with a can of Liquid Death. It's like, it's used for torture, right? Yeah. And I'm sure someone's like, that's offensive, that's human rights violation. But it's like, dude, this water ain't for you, right? Like, I think that's the best part about comedy is it's very opinionated. And so I do believe that if you can attract If you can attract people who think like you will have a better time. I do think that you'll have a better time in business. So
What I think is interesting, I was looking at some stats around how much of a lack of trust there is now, especially
yes,
after COVID, because everything's online, everyone's behind screens. They did a survey around like how if people trusted their bosses, and it was so low. So many people haven't met them in person, and then they get on and they're very like corporate, maybe conversations that are happening. And so that's why I think comedy and using humor is needed now more than ever, because it's literally showing your authentic self. It's showing this is who this person is. And that's how you build trust right there. It's like, I'm willing to put my silliness in front of you and show you me. And oftentimes, if it's the right kind of person, like even if it's not that funny, seeing someone be in their essence of comedy, of saying a joke, knowing it just fell flat, that's even funny. Like if you're around the right people. But like, I think we're in this space where no one's trusting anyone. And it's because we as a collective are not willing to put ourselves out there and show up in a way that how we operate in everyday life. Like we show up maybe on a screen with someone and we act a very different way. Whereas like behind the scenes, we're maybe constantly cracking jokes and having a good time with our friends, but then showing up in business is a very different way. So to me, if you want to develop trust, you need to be your authentic self. Even if it doesn't land 100% of the time, that's still funny. People tell me jokes all the time. Like I'm not into all kinds of humor, but seeing someone just be themselves and try it, and then also knowing it didn't land, also funny. And I'm like, I just appreciate people for doing that, like showing me their true self, because right now it's hard to see that if you just stay in this lane. And then especially all the worries that people have of like, is this going to offend? Am I going to get canceled? Is this person going to like take this the wrong way? Seeing someone show up, and of course, don't be like literally over the top offensive. Like you shouldn't make fun of someone's like looks. We'll get to the end of like things to think about, but I think showing up authentically, and like if you know that you're silly outside of work or outside of building a business, why wouldn't you want your colleagues to see that? Why wouldn't you want them to know who you are? Why wouldn't you want your, people that you're selling contracts to or products to, why wouldn't you want them to experience that? Because that's your authentic self. And that's what's going to attract the right people to you. So you're right. It might not attract everyone. And there might be people who, for instance, meet me having a sales conversation, and I might sound smart for a second and then also go into something really silly. If that silly aspect of myself turns off that potential customer, I actually don't want to work with them. Like that's the new space that I'm in. I'm like, I want people to know that you're working with an actual human here who's having a great time. We're going to have fun here. We're going to do a lot of smart shit together, but we're also going to have fun. Because why else are we why else build a business? Why else do the things that we're doing if we're not actually going to have fun and we're not attracting people around us who want to have fun and make waves, change your company, do all the things, but like at the top, have fun together.
I'm perfectly aligned there. That's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind that is true. And the way I would also phrase the lack of trust is actually, I think, lack of trust also, this adds to that lack of trust, is that so many people are so fake. And that, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't believe this to be true. And whether it's intentional or not, I take, for example, my kids and seeing some of their friends, like they are trying. It happened for my generation. It happened for yours. And it's definitely happening to my son, where people really, really want to be cool through what they portray. So, we did it through MySpace customization, or I did. I'm aging myself.
Same.
But you said you customized your MySpace. You didn't let that stock MySpace be there, right?
No.
And so back then it was like, well, how good can you code, right? Then it was like, how good can your pictures be? Now it's like, how good can your videos be? And then people are doing like edited videos, and I mean, like kids are actually pulling down their social media posts based upon likes of strangers. Like, who are you impressing? And so this is a problem from kids to adults, is like you're putting on a face because you believe that is what the world wants to see. No place is this greater than LinkedIn. I am forever committed. I'm committed from now on to not be serious on LinkedIn. Like I just can't stand it. I'm thrilled to announce, like, I'm at booth 550. Like, no one gives a shit. Like, no one gives a shit that you're at booth 550. What you should say something like is, I'm going to give whoever shows up, I'll either give you a demo or a handy. Booth 550.
You went to the same spot. I was literally gonna be like, show up here, I'm gonna give you a BJ. What?
Yeah. Whoever shows up, you get a demo or Andy, you never know.
See, but I think that would work. I mean, I honestly think in the world that we're in today,
I'd be like, hey, bro,
that would work.
I was definitely kidding about the handy, but you want to see this demo?
You just pull out a little like fake hand. Here's your hand. Like, where would your mind going with that?
That would be silly prop comedy. But yeah, like LinkedIn is where there are so many people that are like, I think it's actually the most inauthentic place on earth. Nobody is serious. And I get it. You're trying to get work and, you're trying to impress people, get deals, close business. But I'm thinking to myself, man, I've never closed a deal through LinkedIn. I've literally never done it. And I just decided, fuck it.
I have.
I'd rather just be annoying on LinkedIn. I'd rather just be who I am on LinkedIn and not even worry about the other stuff.
Yeah, that's where we got our Israeli tech company. Remember? LinkedIn.
There you go. But they left.
So we have closed one. They left. And they weren't fun. That's what happened.
We did not laugh a lot. That is true.
We did not laugh at all. Yeah. I mean, I do think, along with thinking through, the trust piece and like the trust when it comes to the outside world, I also think about the trust with your inside world. And an example is, so our producer of Mission Daily, Lacey, and I were at an event this past weekend, and we spent hours laughing and making up random stories, letting it go into random places, adding on to it, literally enabling each other just to stay in this space of laughter. And afterwards, personally, I was like, literally felt so much closer because I'm like, I allowed her more into me to see like, this is who I am. I see who you are, see how silly we are. And like those moments, it's hard to always get that, of course, online, but like being together and just allowing yourself to go into the spaces that are kind of vulnerable, kind of being like, ooh, is any of this funny? Like, do I want to let you in to see how like childish I am and like how my brain thinks? And the second you do is the second like you can really develop, I think, such a deep level of trust because someone sees you. And so when it comes to your team, same thing, like the outside world, developing trust so people can see you, selling clients, same thing, but also just like team culture. And I'd say even you and I, Albert, like we do laugh randomly over random things a lot. And I do feel like that allows for a closeness. There's a trust there because then I'm like, I know you, you know me, we can say a lot of things. Sometimes we might offend each other, like probably not, but like you never know. And there's a willingness to take that risk because that's the space that we're in. Whereas there's other people I've been around, I don't have that. And I'm like, I just don't trust you enough yet to know if this would be okay to say. And I don't want you to see me. Like, so it's 100% a trust thing that if you use it right, like it can open up so many doors.
That is undeniable. I agree. Now, how can someone actually, or let's not go right there. So let's talk about some comedians though, because as part of my homework, I was like, man, what is comedy, right? And so as the highest form of intelligence, and I think to myself, I was thinking about it, like what is a good statement? I think Lacey, before the show started, said, hey, a good hook statement is it went from this to that. And I thought of it for jokes, and typically a joke's gonna, whatever follows these statements is typically something you can turn into a joke. And so, isn't it weird? Or have you ever noticed? Typically, I find observational comedy to be the absolute funniest. And I am not funny right now because I am not a comedian, but we talked about this before. Is like, like Jim Carrey, physical comedy. I don't think it's that funny. I also will not find funny or not as funny for things that I can't really relate to. So like, if you remember, there was like in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was like the Jeff Foxworthy redneck movement where it was like Jeff Foxworthy, Larry the Cable Guy, Lewis Black. They all got really famous. And right now Theo Von's kind of like in that same realm. And I was never offended by what they said, but I also didn't really relate. Like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't laugh as much because I didn't come from the country. I didn't understand I kind of understood some of the stereotypes, but I didn't really know much about it. And so those jokes, it's not that they weren't funny, but they weren't relatable to me. So I was thinking about this, like who is like really intellectually funny? And I got a bunch of comedians here, but like, for every opinion or point of view, there's a comedian for you. Right. So like Jimmy Kimmel, which is funny, is I'm gonna name these two. Jimmy Kimmel makes fun of conservatives a lot, right? So he's gonna make fun of like anything Republican. Everyone makes fun of the government, like a lot of Republican opinions. He's gonna make fun of. So does Trevor Noah. But conversely, Adam Carolla, who was his partner on the Man Show, he makes fun of liberals all the time, right? And so like these two used to be part of the Man Show, and so sometimes I'm like, Jimmy Kimmel, has he grown up, or is it just because he's on the Tonight Show now that he's kind of changed his tune? I don't know, right?
Probably
authenticity, right? Because you did do the Man Show where you had girls with big boobies jumping around, drinking beers, telling a lot of jokes that mostly guys thought were funny, you know. But other comedians that I think are very observational I can relate to. I love Joe Coy. Joe Coy's Filipino American, not quite Chinese, but his jokes about growing up in Asian household in America, spot on for almost every Asian I know. And so I can relate to that. Chappelle makes fun of a lot of different groups, a lot of white people. He does a lot of black jokes. And he definitely makes fun of a lot of white people. So I'm not black, but I definitely know. I feel like I can relate to his jokes a lot. He does make fun of trans people, which can be highly offensive to some, but I think it's a funny subject. Jay Leno, back in the day, he used to make fun of fatness all the time. He had tons of fat jokes, which was funny because he was also not that physically fit. But I think in today, he would get roasted a lot for some of the jokes he used to tell. And then my favorite comedian is actually the smartest comedian, intellectual comedian is, I think, is Ricky Gervais. I mean, he's got jokes about the Bible. He's got jokes about Hitler. He's got jokes about the Holocaust. He's got jokes about pedophilia. Like any subject, he has an ability to make funny. So I think Ricky Gervais is my number one intellectual comedian by far. Like he can make fun of anything. Although if you're on the other end of that joke, you probably don't like him.
Yeah. I mean, but that's where I think when you identify some of those people, and I know we talked about this, some of the stand-up comedians who are the most well-loved, to me, are like, they're super intelligent and they're highly emotional intelligent, and they can kind of read a room and go into all the places and then also understand like, ooh, this one might be a little too far. What's my audience here? Like they're doing so many things at once to be funny. Because when you see the comedian who just sticks so far with one thing, but then it's kind of missing maybe the people who are coming and listening to him and wanting to hear from him, like they get stuck in an area because they can't go from like different spaces and connect with people on different levels. And so that's why I think a lot of the people that you listed off, I think they're really well positioned, and they do that well where they can connect with a lot of people in different spaces because they are observing the ridiculousness of humanity, and they're seeing and observing the things in life that everyone does kind of feel connected with. Like I think that's a big thing, is like, how do you find the most mundane things that connect with the highest amount of people where anyone can be like, I've literally felt that before. I just saw that when I was walking. I never thought about the element of a gas hook. Like what, I never thought about it in a sexual way. Like whatever it is, it's like something that the mass amount of people know about, have thought about, or they've probably never thought about, and you're bringing levity to something that is an everyday thing. So that's the highest form of intelligence right there.
Yeah. And then the kings, actually, probably the kings, they're not stand-up comedians, but the kings of observational humor and intelligence, because they kind of often predict the future, are the dudes from South Park. I mean, they constantly are making, so they just put out a bit about Ozempic and about like Ozempic's going to be the new drug party. And like, and I was like, it is. I think it is. There is going to be like, it's going to be like, I don't know if people are ashamed of doing Ozempic. I think they are very proud. I think like, come over here, let's do it together. Like maybe like it's like a social thing, like cocaine, like in the future.
Wow.
Hit the Ozempic. Yeah.
See, I feel like, I mean, it's probably because the space that I'm in, but most people in Austin aren't on that, but everyone is on peptides. And so that's a big thing in Austin, is like being on peptides that are similar to Ozempic, different. Yeah. I know the government's trying to outlaw them right now because not the government, Big Pharma is trying to get peptides outlawed right now because they have even higher impacts on like weight loss than Ozempic does. And Ozempic has some pretty terrible reactions. So.
And stuff?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because if you do, you need to know that you are absolutely brainwashed because you are now saying this drug, oh, 100%, the research, the underground research says this is unsafe. Ozempic, no, it's safe, totally safe. The pharma company told me it's safe, right? So,
Yeah. I
note
mean,
to
yeah.
self: if you're out there listening and you are anti-vaxxer but you're pro Ozempic, you are brainwashed. You're actually brainwashed. You believe
Yeah.
what you want to believe because you have literally violated yourself for 2 drugs.
I would assume that if people are anti-vaxxers, they would not be taking Ozempic, but they would be taking the peptides for weight loss instead that are more like
Who
natural
knows?
and found in your body already. That's my assumption, just based
I
off
have
my
no idea.
limited pool of people who do this in Austin. But where were we going with this?
I just tangented you. I just definitely just had a random thought in my head, but because I was saying how South Park, they're
Oh, yeah, South
very
Park.
observational. I
Yep,
think they are
yeah,
very smart and witty. You can
yep,
be upset as much as you want about what they've observed, but I think it's
yeah.
Team America is one of the funniest.
Parks and Rec, same thing. I mean, that's why I think comedy has the power to bring messages to people in a way that gets past the triggers, gets past the like quick offenses of if you tell someone, kind of like what you just said about Ozempic. That's probably not the best way to deliver the message. Anyone who hears that is probably going to be like, fuck you, Albert, I don't want to hear it that way. Like, that's not a good way to do it. Versus you put that same message into comedy, into South Park, into some other format where you're just poking fun at that and highlighting that issue through humor, you're going to reach a lot more people who won't instantly write you off and be like, Albert's just judging me, versus seeing it where other people are laughing and you're like, that is kind of true, actually. Like, that's pretty funny. So, like, I think comedy has the power to deliver messages to so many more people. And if you do it right, you can really change the world through humor. That's what I think.
I don't know if you can change the world, but I hope
Why?
you can change a couple opinions. I hope
That's
that's to
changing
be
the
true.
world.
Change
If it's
the
the right
world?
opinions, it
Huh?
might. You only need to change a couple opinions and you can change the world. You don't need to change everyone's mind. Everyone's not making the world a better place. It's just a couple. So
Yeah.
like just
Oh,
changing a
well,
couple
okay.
people's
That's
minds.
true. Then that can be true. Because he's dead now, but Daniel Carlin had he had a lot of social commentary, especially about the government, taxation, that I kind of wish more people would listen to. I personally agree, and I love a lot of comedians tell different forms of this. And again, I'm not a comedian, therefore my delivery is not funny. And by the way, I've always said that comedy is actually just delivery, because that's the reason why if you try to recite a comedian's jokes, even if you say it word for word, no one will laugh. Well, maybe someone will laugh if you're good, but it really is the delivery. But he goes on this tirade about taxation and how you're getting screwed all the time. And he goes, and it's in multiple of his bits about like this idea that you can vote for somebody who has your best interest in mind is just a total fallacy, right? And that's kind of the crux of the bit. And I just wish more people would listen to that, because the amount of people who want more government services in a failing government service system is mind-boggling to me. I don't understand. I don't understand how people are thinking this is actually the solution. And I feel like they do a great job of making light of how, I mean, even Ricky Bobby makes fun of it. Like, why, like, when the European racer Sacha Baron Cohen comes to NASCAR, it's like, why do you think I came to America, Ricky Bobby's like, public education, healthcare, NASCAR. You know what I mean? Like that, it's making light of the fact that we actually suck at these things.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm like, I think that if you look into the messaging behind a lot of movies, I was sending Lacey a whole list yesterday of movies that had messages in there. It just might hit someone, like they might understand it at a later date. And so that's what I think is so interesting about media and using humor in this way. It might not hit in the moment. If you think about like Don't Look Up, 80% of the people probably walked out of that Don't Look Up movie and they were just like, I don't even know what they were talking about. And it was funny and it was weird. But then later on, it might be like, oh, shoot.
I didn't think Don't Look Up was funny, but I loved the message.
Really?
I still liked
You didn't
the
think
movie.
it was funny? I thought
No,
there
I
was
didn't laugh
moments
too
that were
much,
funny.
but I did like the movie. You can like
Okay.
something and not think it's funny. I mean, I
Yeah.
still like
Okay,
it.
well then, Toy Story. Toy Story has many cute, funny moments, deep messages throughout Toy Story. The Office,
recall.
Parks and Rec.
Oh yeah, Office Parks and Rec, my favorite. Like,
Yeah, like so
dude,
many
Ron
good.
Swanson's the greatest character of all time, as far as I'm concerned, for TV.
Yep, yeah. And there was this movie back in 1980s called 9 to 5, where these women were basically highlighting the issues of like workplace inequalities, and they were just putting a spotlight on what was happening, and it was funny and it was silly. And to do that in 1980, like that's pretty interesting to be able to be like, here's what's actually happening, being a whistleblower through media and through humor and like having everyone laugh, but being like, wait a second, that's actually what I think is happening. Like, this doesn't feel right. There was also a movie. Have you ever seen Four Lions about the terrorists?
No.
I feel like you would actually like this. So I'll send you the trailer. We can also link it up for anyone. It was, I think, a while ago. But movies like that, there's so many messages in them. And I think that it doesn't have to hit in the moment when you're experiencing this art, this, comedy, this whatever it is. It could actually hit you years later to be like, oh, that's what this was talking about. So have hope that it can deliver messages. It just might not hit right away.
The biggest takeaway here is, if you agree in any way, I would say find your group, find your circle, find, I would go check out shows. Honestly, I would watch different movies. There's bound to be something that makes you laugh. I hope so. If nothing makes you laugh, you are sad and miserable. Do not call me. Do not write. Don't write to me at info@mission.org. Please don't @tag me. Just keep on doing your thing. Be sad. But if something does, I think you should amplify it. Meaning, I think you already said scientifically it makes you feel better. I think you should consume more of it. I think you should probably, if you go to a show, if you can, go to a show. You'll probably meet someone that thinks similarly to you. And that will still, this is only for people that feel like alone or feeling like maybe downtrodden a little bit. You don't have to feel alone, but maybe like things are too serious in your life. Get some levity in your life. And to do that, you need to find someone who thinks like you, right? So like we talked about before, like if you want to make fun of and laugh at the ideas of liberals, you're not going to do well. You're not going to do well in certain groups, right? You got to go find that group that does make fun of those opinions. And I think it's okay. And I also agree that you have to almost internally, if you're a serious person, tell yourself what Stephanie has told, which is just allow people to have opinions. It's not that big. Like, I'm offended. Like that, just move on. Right.
Yeah.
And I think you'll find, if you feel down on your luck, I think you'll find more joy. And if you can bring that to business, you'll have a lot of fun at business for sure. If you can find your circles.
Yep. Yeah. I think that when I think about the how-to for me, the first one is like, if you're already funny and you already get your people laughing around you, but you're just nervous to do it in business, that's an easier one, because it's just like, okay, just bring your authentic self in a way that you feel is right. Try it out, experiment. You're probably not going to lose as much as you imagine you might lose. Like, you'll be good. But for the people in the beginning where you're like, can people actually learn to be funny? And you said that you didn't think everyone can be funny.
No.
I actually think everyone can, but it might just be changing the way that you look at life and the way that you view life and like the experiences that you're attracting. And my thought for these kind of people is, step one, just going through the next week and just noticing more opportunities for laughter. So it's not trying to be funny. You're not trying to say a skit. You're not trying to copy someone else's skit. You're just looking for moments that can make you laugh. You're being more generous with your laughter. Like anything. It can be small things, like writing them down. Write down 10 observations that you are noticing that you never would have noticed before. So it's everyday stuff. You're just observing it. You're looking for oddities. You're looking for incongruities in your life of being like, this is a weird thing that I do every day. I did just walk by something that, how am I not noticing this when I'm stepping over this pile of poop every day? Whose dog is this? Like, it's noticing the little things that you go throughout your life and you don't even take a moment to like stop and pause. And so once I think you get in that act of noticing, you get in the act of observing, you go and you write it down, that to me is how you can get yourself to a funnier place, because then you're navigating the world in a different place. You're observing the world in a different place. And if you're able to make yourself giggle and laugh inside your head, actually loudly laugh, like the second you're able to do that, the second I think your whole world changes. Because if you're going around and you're looking at life like it's not a funny thing, to me, life is going to be hard. because life has a lot of dumbness in it. It has a lot of stupidity. Like if you can't laugh at these things, then you won't be able to understand it all. There's so many complicated things in life. Like you're not going to be able to understand
And in
it
the
all.
short term, you really can't change that much either.
You can't change it.
This is pulling off of, I don't know, are you pulling off of Jerry Seinfeld's graduation speech?
So in his speech that I sent y'all this morning, that was one of the things where he talked about not losing your sense of humor, because life, you won't ever be able to make sense of it. So yeah, he said this one thing.
Yeah.
And then I more added on of like, change your perspective, change your reality. I think actually Wayne Dyer said something like that. Like change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Your life will literally change if you bring levity to it. Nothing's that serious. For most people listening, nothing's that serious. Even when I think about my current life, getting people trying to put restraining orders against me, really just one person, not people. Having people suing me, one person, not people. But like constant attempts, at a certain point, it gets funny. Like you have to laugh at it, or you can just let yourself go and like spiral into a depression or anger or whatever. Like having levity in all these situations. Your kid does something. I mean, we were talking about our kids having to sit with us while we're in the bathroom pooping. That's funny. You could approach it with anger and be like, God, this is so
Or embarrassment.
Embarrassment. Or you just bring light to like, my kid literally sits there and watches me poop. Like, and I tell them to get out and they don't. They just stare at me and they want to sit through it. Like, that's funny. So like, how do you want to approach these situations in life? So that's what I think. Step one, observe, write down these observations, and then come back and be like, how can I make jokes of my everyday observances?
Growing up, I was embarrassed by my, immigrant parents. They had like very like Asian moms with their curly perms, and my aunts. And I remember, I don't know I can't like really pinpoint the time frame exactly, but there was a shift. There was a shift from this is embarrassing, to like, this is kind of funny. Like there's very clear that Asian immigrant moms act very differently than my white, most of the kids I went to school, I think we had like 10 black kids in our school. Most of the kids in my school were white, like their parents, like it was just very different. Right. And so seeing different comedians make fun of that definitely changed the way I embraced it as well. And as soon as like, it was more like, this is a quirk that's observationally quirky and I can laugh. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Do you know what I mean? There's absolutely, my mom is my mom. She's pretty funny. And it was funny. What you just said, I observed with my mom during like end of life, which is as serious as it gets. And she was just like, what else is there to do left? What else is there left to do but to make fun of this preposterous situation I'm in? Yeah. Like asking me if her diaper looks good. Like I about died laughing because she couldn't get up anymore. She's like, do you think it looks good? I'm like, it's a diaper, Mom. It's a diaper. She goes, that looks pretty good.
Yeah. See, there's wisdom right there.
What's that?
There's wisdom right there.
Yeah. It was like her way of, I guess, hey, if this is going to be the last whatever, I'm not going out sad. That's kind of how she attacked it.
Yep. I love that. Well, it sounds like we actually converged on agreeing.
No, I don't think you can learn it though, but I think you should surround it.
Well, there's that. All right. Well, this episode today, awesome, amazing. We learned about the science behind humor, what it does to your body, how it's literally impacting your cells, and how you're able to show up to the world. We talked about how it builds trust. We talked about how it's good to use when it comes to client relationships, selling deals, friendships, community, how to find your community, how to attract the right people, and even the one thing that you can try to do if you're like, I don't feel funny, I don't know how to tap into humor, I don't know how to bring it into my life. We gave you one idea. So try it out. Let us know what you think. Send us an email, info@mission.org, especially Albert. Send him many emails. He just wants all of them. And until then, we will see you all next time. Thanks, Albert.
Until next time.